This is my favorite argument against the existence of a God. It comes from Alex O'Connor, and first I'm going to show you his clip and then show you how you can respond to this argument as a Christian.
Billions of animals suffering and dying, predation, disease, eating each other alive, leaving each other to bleed out on the floor, and this is being supervised by an all-loving God?
To sum up Alex's argument, if God is truly all-loving, how can we justify the fact that animals suffer without any clear indication of it adding to God's plan? How can we justify a deer that is attacked by a bear and then left to die in confused agony? How would an all-loving God oversee such a terrible thing? There are two problems with this argument. First, Alex is assuming that animals have a soul, but as a Thomist, I completely reject that idea. A soul is the product of an intellectual appetite, and if we can show that animals do not have an intellect, it would follow that animals do not have a soul, meaning that the pain described by Alex would not be experienced by any sentient being. A great argument for the fact that animals do not have an intellect comes from Koko the gorilla. In the 1970s, a group of scientists taught American Sign Language to a gorilla named Koko. Now, Koko was able to learn over 1,000 terms and identify objects with genuine accuracy. However, Koko was never able to ask a single question because Koko couldn't understand that there was truth outside of its own physical senses. Koko didn't know that there was an immaterial existence beyond physical touch. And once again, as we just showed, if animals do not have an intellect, there's nothing driving their appetite other than pure instinct, meaning that there is no soul behind the eyes of animals. This would mean that there's nothing experiencing the pain that is so problematic for our all-loving God. The second major flaw with Alex's argument is that he has a preconceived notion of what it means to be all-loving. Now again, as a Thomist, I believe in divine simplicity, meaning that God himself is love. So anything that God does is automatically all-loving. If God decides to wipe all of the humans off the face of the earth, that is a loving act. If God wants someone to suffer for eternity, it is a loving act. If God wants an animal to suffer, it is still a loving act. Now you might say, well, that doesn't sound very loving to me, but saying user 660782 believes that God is mean, therefore God doesn't exist, isn't a real argument. I would absolutely love to hear Alex's thoughts on these responses, so if you guys are willing to tag him in the comments, I would greatly appreciate it.